Breaking news today, South Park takes a jab at President Trump in its latest episode. In response, the White House has fired back, while Paramount has quietly settled with Trump for millions. Is this a case of bold satire or just corporate hypocrisy? Stay tuned for more.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
CNN reports that after an episode angered the White House, South Park co-creator jokingly apologized. This raises a question. Why do entertainment companies only seem to demonstrate their courage by mocking the current president, never the previous one? Consider this. South Park's creators targeted President Trump and then issued a sarcastic apology, while their parent company, Important, paid him $16 million to settle a lawsuit. Is this principled satire or merely corporate hypocrisy masquerading as rebellion? We live in a world where massive media conglomerates amass billions, make secret deals with politicians, and then preach morality to us. Important, which recently cut its diversity programs and canceled The Late Show to smooth over a merger, is a prime example. Important, which recently cut its diversity programs and canceled The Late Show to smooth over a merger, is a prime example. Of the comedians, the corporations, or the bureaucrats operating behind the scenes? Contrastingly, the previous administration, Biden and Harris, was seldom subjected to Hollywood's harsh satire. Instead, they were shielded and praised, regardless of how their policies affected ordinary Americans. Now, with President Trump back in office, Hollywood sharpens its knives once more. The underlying message seems to be that challenging the globalist agenda or advocating for American sovereignty and traditional values makes you a target for ridicule. Yet, the real irony lies in the media's fixation on cartoon satire, while critical issues like our borders, economy, and freedoms are dictated by unelected executives and regulators. Perhaps it's time to shift our focus from the entertainment to the power dynamics at play. After all, this isn't just about comedy, it's about who holds the power. Let's do this.
In fact, South Park is proving to be a very valuable asset as Paramount inked a $1.5 billion deal, to exclusively air South Park on its streaming channel.
South Park's massive $1.5 billion streaming deal with Important highlights the enduring appeal of irreverent satire in American culture, despite the entertainment industry's recent ideological and financial challenges. The show's latest season premiere, which targeted President Trump in its signature exaggerated style, is just the surface. Behind the scenes, Important's strategic focus on content that attracts substantial audiences, moving away from programs that solely cater to progressive ideologies, is the real story. The shift follows Important's decision to abandon expensive diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and to cancel The Late Show with Stephen Colbert after it became a predictable platform for left-wing rhetoric and began losing money. These changes mark a significant industry correction, prioritizing profitability and broad appeal over ideological posturing. Major media companies have historically prioritized political correctness over shareholder interests and viewer preferences, often alienating audiences. Also, Important's willingness to settle a $16 million lawsuit with President Trump concerning deceptive editing in a 60 Minutes interview, while simultaneously mocking him in its flagship cartoon, illustrates the opportunism and hypocrisy within these corporations. They capitalize on controversy, but recognize the real legal and financial risks involved. This situation underscores that the market, not activist pressures, ultimately influences corporate decisions, rejecting the divisive policies of the previous Democratic administration. Interestingly, while South Park mocks figures across the political spectrum, it is under the Republican administration that media companies are being held accountable and required to ensure transparency. The recent merger between Important and Skydance, approved by the FCC only after Important agreed to eliminate its DEI programs and appoint an ombudsman to oversee bias at CBS News, shows that regulatory oversight can help balance an industry long perceived as biased against conservative viewpoints. This scenario is not about censorship, but about fostering a media landscape where diverse viewpoints can compete fairly, free from the influence of politically motivated gatekeepers. Hollywood can continue to produce edgy, controversial content. That is their right. They should also be subject to market dynamics and regulatory oversight, especially when ethical boundaries are crossed or deception occurs. For a $1.5 billion deal for South Park is a clear indicator that audiences value authentic, unfiltered humor, even if it is occasionally offensive. Important's shift from woke programming to content that genuinely resonates with viewers is a positive step. It represents a move towards reclaiming American media from an overextended globalist agenda and demonstrates that the free market, when unimpeded, rewards those who prioritize quality and authenticity over ideological conformity.
He was frequently on. He was somebody who really esteemed it. The franchise has grown less favorable to him since he was in office the first time and the second. But the reality is this: the economics are why Colbert is not on the air anymore. And I say that as a huge fan of his for many years. It was a show that was losing reportedly $40 million.
The economics behind these decisions are undeniable. When a show, regardless of its cultural significance or political angle, starts hemorrhaging tens of millions annually, even ideologically driven executives must rethink their strategies. We are witnessing not just a business correction, but a broader industry reckoning. For too long, major networks and studios have prioritized content that appeals to a narrow set of progressive interests, often sacrificing profitability and mainstream preferences. The sudden cancellation of late-night shows, which had become predictable and one-sided, signals a shift away from unchecked ideological content. This change isn't happening in isolation. The recent merger between Important and Skydance, approved only after cutting costly diversity initiatives and introducing checks for editorial bias, marks a return to regulatory sense and market accountability. It directly addresses years of corporate excess and past cozy relationships between entertainment conglomerates and the previous Democratic administration, which promoted divisive policies and suppressed alternative viewpoints. The current regulatory climate, shaped by a White House that champions transparency and fairness, is now holding these corporations accountable, ensuring they serve the broader public, not just a vocal minority. The contrast is stark. Whereas the previous administration and its media allies advocated for more centralized control and expanded DEI mandates, the current approach emphasizes that the market should dictate what succeeds and what fails, not bureaucratic decrees or activist pressures. The enduring success of South Park, which remains a commercial powerhouse with a record-breaking streaming deal worth $1.5 billion, proves that audiences favor authenticity and irreverence over ideological conformity. This is a critical moment for the entertainment industry and American culture. As networks adjust their priorities, the influence of globalist agendas and progressive orthodoxy is giving way to a renewed emphasis on profitability, accountability, and genuine creative risk-taking. The era when media giants could alienate half the country while clinging to activist rhetoric is ending. With the market and regulatory environments now in sync, there's genuine hope for a media landscape that respects diverse viewpoints and prioritizes the interests of everyday Americans.
But let's look at what else Skydance agreed to in getting this merger approved. Comprehensive review of CBS, install an ombudsman for complaints of bias, make changes to ensure viewpoint diversity, and eliminate all DEI policies at Paramount. I mean, the DEI piece is something we've seen across the board, right? Pressure on universities, for instance, law firms, and now a major media group here. What's your reaction to see that kind of price paid, in effect, for a merger?
The hefty price Skydance paid to complete this merger underscores the shifting dynamics of the media landscape. Important's agreement to a complete review of CBS, the appointment of an ombudsman to address bias complaints, and the elimination of all diversity, equity, and inclusion policies are not merely symbolic. These steps are a direct response to years of ideological excess that has both alienated viewers and eroded trust in the media and entertainment sectors. Similar pressures are evident across universities and law firms nationwide, signaling a broader demand for change within major media conglomerates. This isn't about censorship or stifling voices. It's about promoting a variety of viewpoints and ensuring that the content consumed by Americans isn't seen through a restrictive ideological filter. Networks like CBS have too often acted as echo chambers, dismissing valid bias concerns as marginal. The introduction of an ombudsman marks a significant move towards greater accountability and transparency, which should be applauded by all who value genuine journalism, irrespective of political leanings. Consider CNN's coverage of the merger. Their reports often overlook the real implications of these changes, focusing instead on perceived threats to press freedom. They tend to rely on anonymous sources and experts who perpetuate similar narratives, seldom questioning the efficacy of DEI programs, despite their lackluster results. CNN's presentations are polished, but their storytelling is biased, with graphics and headlines that push a specific agenda rather than fostering authentic discussion. Their approach to fact-checking often appears biased, scrutinizing claims that go against progressive views more rigorously than those that support them. This isn't journalism, it's activism masquerading as news. The fact that Important is making these changes indicates a failure of the old model. The removal of DEI policies at such a significant company sends a strong message. Profitability and audience trust are important, outweighing the desire to placate activists or pursue transient trends. If executed faithfully, the ombudsman role could redefine how media outlets address bias complaints, setting a new industry standard. It's notable that shows like South Park, which consistently challenge all perspectives, remain profitable because they dare to question prevailing norms. This is the type of content that thrives when the market operates freely without the interference of ideological gatekeepers. The real narrative here isn't about suppressing creativity or enforcing top-down directives. It's about empowering audiences and holding media giants accountable. CN could benefit from this industry shift. Rather than reinforcing partisan narratives and ignoring valid criticisms, they should adopt the transparency and responsiveness that an ombudsman offers. A more balanced approach would include diverse expert opinions, recognize the shortcomings of DEI initiatives, and present stories in a way that encourages viewers to form their own opinions. Rebuilding trust in media doesn't come from slogans or gestures, but from tangible changes in how news is reported and presented.
I only watch cable. That and streaming. Yeah. But there's clearly a gap there in mainstream television that excludes conservatives when you're watching the primetime channels. That this administration thought it's important that there's diversity of things.
Cable television remains a bastion for viewers seeking programming beyond the progressive narratives widespread on streaming platforms. There's a noticeable absence of conservative perspectives in mainstream television, particularly during prime time, despite efforts to foster a more diverse range of viewpoints. Flipping through major channels, it becomes evident that the diversity touted is often a mere repackaging of similar ideological content, leaving many Americans feeling unrepresented. The economic implications are clear. Networks that disregard the preferences of a significant portion of their audience face financial repercussions. For example, Important's decision to cancel shows like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which had turned into a predictable echo chamber, was due to annual losses exceeding $10 million. These figures reflect shifts in household spending and consumer behavior, with families choosing to cut cable or switch to streaming services that offer better value and respect their views. Important's $16 million settlement with the Trump campaign over a 60 Minutes interview